Behind it, 90 tonne, face shovel, again worked at Finesford. Those two worked together down in the Finesford mine. The Ruston came out to Australia. Originally it was up in Queensland and in a mine, levelled the mountain up there where it worked, then was bought by the cement works, completely pulled apart, shipped by horses, and that to the wharfhead at Rocky, I believe. And then they brought it down to Geelong and carted it out from the Geelong wharf and put it back together in the floor of the mine. And then we brought it up here 1973, and that Ruston was still on standby and could be used in the cement works when we brought it up. Used to sit right there. That was its spot back in the day, and the Bucyrus came up. They are the only two in the world left. A 90 tonne Ruston is the only one left. 60 tonne rail train Bucyrus is the only one left operating in the world. And in fact we've had a fair bit of help from Caterpillar, who own Bucyrus now, with all sorts of drawings and everything. But what we're about today, the 124th rally, is all about Marshall. And this is a field marshal. Marshall started in steam and a lot of equipment prior to that, built steam engines. The Marshall, field marshal, Marshall tractor over there looks very much like a traction engine, but has, of course, kerosene, petrol powered, whatever, fossil fuels, whatever you want to call it in this wokey world we live in, of stuff that we're not allowed to have anymore, apparently. So there we go, the field marshal. You start them with a cartridge. They're a bit unique. We might even start the dozer over there in a minute. We'll run through that and how you start them. Only the POMs could come up with shooting an engine to start it. That's all I can say. So there we go, the field marshal there, drawbar tractor. They had a real habit. They were called the Widowmaker because you could hook onto something and they would pull and pull and pull, and because they're so short, they would climb over and come down, rear like a horse, and like a horse does, rear over on top of you, can, not all the time, rear over on top of you, and horse, well, 9 times out of 10 you survive that, but with a field marshal tractor, not quite the same result. So they had the nickname, the Widowmaker. Very good. There is one thing that they didn't come out with, was Telstra rope. Another grey Fergie, 35 gold going by, ticking away there quite nicely. As I say, they're worth quite a bit to a collector now, the 35 gold, the genuine one. And 3-point linkage tractor with the draft control. And as I say, here's a grey Fergie, and Harry Ferguson had the idea to have every implement. This is a scoop, and believe it or not, I know many a farm that's had a dam dug with one of those tractors. It wasn't how big was the dam, it was just how much bloody time did you have. And they would do it. They, out in the Yarra Valley, I could name 10 or 15 places I know where Grey Fergie's dug a dam. 16 and 18 horsepower, yes. And how can you tell it apart? The 16 horsepower has the water pump mounted on the block. The 18 horsepower has it mounted on the head. That is the only way you can tell externally, and if anyone tries to tell me any different, we'll pull a couple of them apart. But that is the only way you can tell the difference externally when you're looking. An early or a late. 16 horsepower early, 18 horsepower late. That 2 horsepower is worth heat. 35 coming out. The Lord Mayor of Warwick, Nabil. Mr. Floss Bibby, living fossil himself. I can say that because he's up there on a tractor and I'm over here. So 35, gold 35, went into the next round of 35. The Vanguard, now these were a service van that they used, and believe it or not, a lot of people think that the standard engine that's in the Vanguard car, ute and van were the same as in the tractor. They're not. They are, but they're not. They're same, but different. And then They're mainly different in the block where the bell housing mounts up is the big difference. But a lot of people think that, oh yeah, they had a Vanguard engine in them. No, they didn't. They had a standard engine, but there was one built for the cars and there was built for the tractors. This is typical of what used to float around. And these big units, let me tell you, I'm glad you're all sitting down. These were 16 horsepower of pure unadulterated grunt. In fact, there is Cork where I've spoken to with a lot of them are long gone, but they used to back them uphill to get them uphill. Reverse was lower geared than first. And when they had them loaded up to the hilt and you came to a big hill, so they turn around and back them up the hill to get them there. Apparently the trick was not to have only quarter of a tank of petrol, because that all turned pear-shaped. Right, thank you. Oh, now here we go. Now I was talking about Harry Ferguson before, who thought of everything. And, yep, he did. So what we have here is the poo cart, ladies and gentlemen. Well, yes, the night cart, but that's most probably has sexual connotations now, so we've got to say poo cart. And, of course, for all those people, there's lots of people here smirking right now who know what this is all about. There's a lot of the younger generation have not got a clue what I am talking about, which I find amusing. So, for all those people who live in Ballarat and some of the older parts of Melbourne, Bacchus Marsh, Geelong, every Bendigo, Ararat, you name it, they had a laneway up the back behind everyone's houses. And the nightmen used to come down and your dunny, the outdoor dunny, was right on the back fence and it had a hole in the back and used to door, open up and you'd slide the full one out and slip the empty one in, and everyone's heard this expression as flat as a shit carter's hat. Well, he used to carry the full one on his head. And of course, so you would put the full ones in the bottom and the empty ones would come out of the top. Is the way they do it. And then of course, halfway through the night, you'd be sitting in here and you'd pull out your thermos and your hanger and have afternoon tea and a breakfast and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, Harry Ferguson, and this actually worked in the city of Bendigo. I don't believe we've seen it. We've seen pictures of them until they found this one. And I reckon it was 20 years ago now, would it? That, yeah, this surface that was found in the back of Bendigo somewhere. And somehow it had survived the scrappy and all that sort of thing. And it's a great example of a bit of, well, it was how it was. There was no flushing loos back then. It was the old can. Do a few round shearing sheds, no doubt, but of course, I think the Australian Workers' Union have just about banned them now. I didn't say that. Righto, we have a birdie with a broadcaster. So, no, you've got to take her out here. So, your superphosphate or your chook shit or whatever you want it to, you could do your urea as well. Goes in the hopper and that spinning broadcasts it out, super spreader. Another Harry Ferguson design. And one big trap with the grey Fergie. They don't have a two-stage clutch, they have a single-stage clutch. So as soon as you drive off, the Pt2 goes, but if you have a slasher behind them and they're slashing and you throw the clutch, doesn't stop the tractor. The inertia of the slasher sometimes, many a person has gone through a neighbour's fence, through a neighbour's garage even, I know a gentleman, and they are a bit of a trap, but there you go. So
so we have security through the first aid room, please. Security to the first aid room.
Thank you. No drama. So security to the first aid room, please. So there we go, whole heap of Fergies going by, 16 and 18 horsepower. 94. Now, I reckon the driver's older than the tractor. 94. Give you a round of applause. What made Harry Ferguson unique was a system that the draft control, a hydraulic three-point linkage system, and they had a draft control. And where the top link goes on, there's a big spring. And you would set your depth to the plough, and no matter what the tractor did doing this, the plough would stay at the depth. So if you set it at 6 inches deep, or 30 centimetres, or 300 millimetres, I think I've covered it all, and the tractor will drop through that drain, the plough would stay at that depth. And that was all due to that spring on the back called the draft control, and it was even copied by Ford. Henry Ford copied it, turned into a big lawsuit, cost Henry Ford after 20 years of fighting it $30 million Australian back in the day. It was about 20 million pounds that it cost Henry Ford in the end. Unfortunately, Harry Ferguson never really got to see a cent of it. He died not long after the final appeal by Henry Ford, who of course was his original employer when he first started out as a design engineer. There we go. We were talking about a Vanguard earlier. We've got another Vanguard here, standard engine in it. Oh, the Vauxhall engine.
A bit of juice in that.
The Vauxhall car.
It's only water.
Right, there you go. So Vauxhall, that one. Of course, who owns Vauxhall? Come on, everyone.
Oh.
The Queen. The royal family owns Vauxhall. And got the proceeds out of Vauxhall from 19... When did Vauxhall first start? There's a good question. 1906? Yeah, so it was owned by the royal family anyway. We say 1906, but there's a question I can't answer. But it was owned by the royal... All the royalties went out of Vauxhall to the royal family back in the day. So whether that'd be King, Queen and country. There you go. The Toyota Land Cruiser, now that's not a relic. Although they have been around since 1962, the first Land Cruiser came into the country is on the Snowy River scheme. There you go, in opposition to the mighty Land Rover. A Waterloo boy. Now there we're getting right back into the origins of the start of John Deere. So Waterloo boy, if you want to go through it, Waterloo boy is the start of the John Deere era of tractor. So if you own something, there's a man who had a large fortune who now's got a small fortune because he's bought a Waterloo boy, because they are, boy, very pricey and big collector's pieces around the world. And of course John Deere is right around the world. A lot of people don't realise as well with a lot of these tractor brands, the Fergie tractor was actually built behind the Iron Curtain in the Ukraine as a Fergie, but I can't say it in Ukraine, or Russian should I say. So there's another tidbit that Harry Ferguson sent. The International Cadet, right on lawnmower, garden tractor, still they were sold around. There was a lot of these sold around the Swan Hill area. They had a really strong inter-dealer up there, and down in Gippsland. Wherever the dealerships were strong for International, you would find that you had either Inter tractors, Bergie tractors, Fordsons. It all came, and no different to car dealers back in the day, Holden and Chrysler and Ford dealers. Wherever the dealers were strong, you would find Wilson and Bolton in Horsham is a classic example. Started with Chrysler, went to Mitsubishi, so virtually stayed with Chrysler, and sold cars all over Australia for well over 100 years. So typical of how the International Cadet had a mower deck, whatever. International Farmall, mid-mount tractor, offset. You can see Barry sitting offset, so if I'm the crop and the flowers, Barry's got a great view of me and he can work it with the mid-mounted toolbar on it. Now he's got scarifier points on there for doing weeding. He could do bed forming with that. He could do a multitude of work ground with straight scarifier tines. These are interchangeable, 2 nuts. Undo those 2 nuts, you can slide the width, or you can drop the tines out, change them over, or do whatever you like. So you could put your bed formers on in there. The whole idea of Barry sitting there is that he's got a perfect view of what he's working over top of. High clearance, mid-mounted toolbar, 140 Farmall. It's absolutely immaculate. I need to throw a bit of dirt on it, Barry. The Howard tractor, Howard garden tractors. They were everywhere. In flower growing, in hot houses, parks and gardens. A lot of the councils had them, and that's a typical setup in a hot house for flower growing. Rotary hoe. They worked in confined areas. They had a Jap engine. They went to Briggs and Stratton. They had a whole range of things. They were sold in Ringwood. They were sold all over the place, Howard. And they were a great little tractor. And they did a lot of work and made a lot of farming horticulture people a lot of money. Keysborough, down around now. Who can remember living around Keysborough, Moorabbin Airport, where they used to grow all the flowers around Kingston Heath Golf Course? It was all flower growers that supplied the markets with flowers down around that area, the Ordsleys and all that, who were big flower producers back in the day. They had a lot of those little tractors running around in their hothouses. 35 Golds with a Fergie carry-all on the back, running away. We were talking about the Waterloo Boy, and that's where they ended up, right here, John Deere, an R-model John Deere. A lot of these sold out of Parker's in Swan Hill. Parker Brothers, the John Deere dealer in Swan Hill, also instrumental in starting the Quampatook tractor pull and Quamby Quaker and all those sorts of things back in the day. R-model John Deeres, they were around that area, the top end of the Mallee and all that for many, many years. And they did a lot of work. Drawbar tractor mainly. Had a belt pulley here as well. You could run a belt pulley on that as well, but basically they were a drawbar tractor for doing broadacre farming back in the day. Ticking away rather nicely there. Half-par, another tractor that half-par were very, very strong back in the 20s and the early 30s. And these are the sort of tractors that took over from horses, and they would pull exactly the same sort of implements. So a lot of the tractor manufacturers back in the day worked out that they weren't going to sell a tractor and a whole heap of implements, so they would produce these tractors and they would make modification kits for the dish ploughs and the scarifiers that the horses had been pulling, and they would adapt them to go straight onto the tractor, so the farmer only had to outlay for the tractor. And what a huge revolution, ladies and gentlemen. You didn't have to get up in the morning, bring the horses in, give them a feed, harness, work them for 2 hours, throw the trace straps over their backs, walk them, feed them, put nose bags on again, give them half an hour, 45 minutes break, then back them in again, re-harness up to your implements, and away you go again for 2 hours. Lunchtime, do the same rigmarole, go for another 2 hours, and just keep doing that all day. You could get up in the morning, dip fuel in it, supposedly fire it up, and work all day. What a revolution in farming, but they designed these sorts of tractors to pull the implements that the heavy horses had pulled in the day, the draft horses. Away we go. As you can see, sprocket driven. Drive sprocket there off the back of the gearbox, and sprocket driven on the wheels, which gave a lot of trouble in dusty, muddy climates, when you put grease and oil on them, what happened? You had a grinding compound that used to grind the absolute bejesus out of them. So they were brought with a lot of English design in a lot of these tractors, because in England they didn't have that dust and heat and all those sorts of things that played with the longevity. Even the traction engines were the same deal. David Brown, another English tractor, very, very popular tractor out here. Of course, David Brown, Aston Martin cars. They built winches, they built all sorts of things. Tractors, the Crop Master, they had a varying range, 3-point linkage, Pt2 shaft. It's got a V-belt there, but normally would have had a belt pulley on the back of it. And they were a very strong tractor, David Brown, for many, many years. The Farmall H, and this tractor's got a bit of history about it. Belt pulley tractor, drawbar, 540 Pt2 on the back, built in Chicago. These were, but these were very unique. Not good in hill country though, Mel. No, no. But they had this when you were working and ploughing ground. Mel, give us a demo. Now, Mel hires himself out to the MCG every year and draws the grand final centre bounce circle. Oh, God, Jesus, now that would be... You wouldn't steer it. Yeah, that's exactly right. Bucket up and fall over. Yeah, a front-end loader. I don't think I've ever heard of that on one of them. Who? Oh, my God, I thought they'd have had more brains. So Pt2 with a cone drive? Yeah. All right, so there you go, a Farmall H with a front end loader. My God, what a diabolical... Oh my. That is... Ooh, I've never heard of that. That's scary. No wonder the bloke died. Anyway, here we go. The market trolley. These things were everywhere, in factories and everywhere, but the most famous place they were was the Vicky Market. They were on the rail, they were everywhere, but at the Vicky Market, there would be 80 of these scooting around, crisscrossing. Have you ever seen the tuk-tuks in Bali? Yep, exactly the same. And the driving skills, they were crossing and doubling back and never had a prank. I have never seen them. And this was the system. You wind up, put your back under, lift your platform of veggies and all that, then you drive off and back in, drop them, go to the next stall, and then they load them on trucks and out to your fruit and veggie people. Not the Woolworths and Coles, when the days when we had fruit and veggies. Lilydale, Petnellas had the fruit and veggies.
Or United States Navy. Barrels can also be lifted off quite easily by 2 men and put on a ship's carriage.
Exactly. Out in the Yarra Valley there was Petnellas, Devon Centis, all out there. They had the best fruit and vegetables, and they brought them, my God, home delivery. Woolworths and Safeways, we've designed this. No, you didn't. I've got pictures of Oliver's General Store in Lilydale with the old spring cart delivering groceries to people. My father used to drive it, delivering the groceries, and took the side out of the headmaster's Oldsmobile. A very famous story in our family. So there you go, the Lister, 2-cylinder, and they turn. Give us a demo. Industrial trolleys, they were known as in the day, and 2-cylinder Lister. These were very heavy. A lot of them were only single cylinders, and these things are very heavy sitting on the front. There's many a picture of an engine laying over on these. Yeah, not good. Righto, there we go. You know the sad part about all this is, I don't remember anniversaries, wedding anniversaries or kids' birthdays or anything, but I can retain all this shit. Yeah, I think that goes down well in our house. Not. Here we go, look at this. This is a bit of an old International Cadet, I reckon, or something similar, or a Simplicity, same thing. And it's running that little shaft motor up the front, horizontal shaft. It's got the garden seat. You can imagine sipping a wine, driving down the road and going over the dam bank into the water after sipping one too many. Very good. The President, another high clearance tractor, a throbbing 8 horsepower prefect motor. Now who remembers the defect, Ford defect? Well, there you go. They're virtually the same engine in the President tractor. They weren't a big, my God, it's alive in there. So the President, they were a whole 8 horsepower. They used them in the flower growing and veggies and all that sort of thing. Another homemade tractor running a little McDonald's, is it? Sorry? Oh, a Southern Cross out of Toowoomba. Yes, the Southern Cross pumps, diesel engines and everything. Of course, manufactured here in Australia in downtown Toowoomba, the little aircraft zone. And there you go, Qantas on it, and used on airports for towing aircraft around everywhere. And you'd be surprised what that little machine would pull around. Flock of Friendships and all that sized aircraft would have been today. The Honda Postage. My God, they are synonymous with postage, I guess. But they also found their ways on the farm. And you used to have your shovel in the poly pipe for going around the irrigation water. And, sorry? A better turning circle, yeah. There we go. Look at that on the Honda with the side chart. Wall 1. I could come up with another rego, but anyway. Another little trusty tractor. And you don't see many trusties. They are a bit of a unique, a little tractor, a trusty. They were around. Again, they used to have a mid-mounted toolbar on them, a lot of them, in the flower growing, and that. You also had your drawbar, but a linkage system on the back. Again, designed for more the horticulture, flower growing and vegetable growing in confined areas was what they were designed for. A British tractor, as one could tell by the design, but again, very, very rare. And linkage system there works on the side handle. Lunchbox on the back. You need a lunch to get down to the shed and back. Hope that's not in reverse. Are you driving, Jack, or what are you doing, mate? You're holding up the Grand Parade, man. Now, this tractor was a really big joke. It might belong to me. And I used to have Vauxhall badges on it. And it had so many people fooled for years. The former owner of it, this tractor came out of Hamilton, and it's got a 6-cylinder Perkins in it, and the owner didn't like the red colour, so his wife, who was a bit of an artist, painted it this colour, and it got the nickname the Vauxhall when I picked it up. And then we had Vauxhall car badges on it, and Vauxhall down the side there. Well, there were experts that were taking photos, and it got to the point where they sent photos back to England saying, we reckon there's the only Vauxhall tractor in the world at Goldsmith. And yeah, got a bit shitty from there on, can I say. The correspondence changed and I took the badges off it. It is a Massey Harris. And that's my daughter on there, Christine. And another young rello, Mr. Graham Milton's grandson, Jack, up there. And that's the future of Lake Goldsmith, right there. And I encourage it. Because when I was that age, I was doing exactly that with my grandfather on dozers and tractors, and my grandfather still had horses as well. So I had a bit of a look at this lovely tractor rocking away. There we go. Did you blow a smoke ring, or the wind might be too strong? Oh no, there we go. Mighty Phil Marshall there blowing a ring. Caterpillar dozer with a cab. D7 I reckon, or D8. And sitting up in there in absolute comfort. Look at the blowers on his face. D8. Cat. Chirping away. And they are, well, back in their day, they were a big machine, the D8. Snowy River, you name it, they were up there doing all of that work. And then we go to this. The Ransoms crawler. It could nearly drive underneath it. From D8 to Ransoms. And the Ransoms crawler, very, very big around King Lake, Talangi area. A lot of these little Ransoms worked up there on strawberries and few on spuds, not very many, but mainly on the strawberries around Talangi. These little machines were everywhere, the Ransoms crawlers. The Abilene Roller, 1932 model. This one. And Alan, all the way from New Zealand, lets everybody talk slower. He flew in here just last Monday out of Rangiora over there in New Zealand, just out of Christchurch, and has been a regular visitor. How long have you been coming here now, Al? 2015 was his first visit, and we can't get rid of him. But the Abilene Roller belonged to the late Les Buckwell, and found its way into my stable, and Al's done a lot of work on it, and she's chopping away magnificently there at the moment. You can see what the Abilene steam, and then into this type of roller. You can see a lot of the stuff in there is still very, very primitive out of the early 1900s. But obviously, dig what it's doing going up there now, where that crawler's been. Al's rolling it back into the ground. Oh my God, listen to the power. Marshall traction engine, 7 horse. The only Marshall traction that's made it up here from Glen Maggie. And well, Marshall's English engine, of course, as I said before, usually were brought into the country by government or municipalities. They were used for rock crushing, a whole range of things that they were used for, then found their way back out into private contractors' hands, and then eventually worked their way on the thrashing teams and all sorts of things. But a 7 horse would have been generally a good sized Shire engine or municipality engine that would have been used for a multitude of things in the Shires back in the day with road making. As I say, they spent a lot of time on rock crushers, sitting there towing that unit around to wherever they were getting the rock from, setting up and then crushing rock to go out onto the road, which were being produced into inland Australia. Of course, the John Fowler traction engine here, the Yellow Peril, it had its name for a long time, and beautiful little engine there, 1909 John Fowler, again Leeds, England, and as I said before, would have come out to a Shire or something like that and then found its way back into private or contracting hand, private contractors and all of that. And as I said before, 5 years was pretty standard to order one of these and then have it arrive in the country. Sometimes 6 and 7 there are stories going about of these engines making their way to Australia. The Burrell engine, Vasey Lady coming behind it. The heavy haulage engine, really, these engines were 3-speed locos, road locos. They'll do about 18 mile an hour, built in 1907, and this spent its life around Mount Gambier, Vasey, Casterton, Coleraine, Hamilton, and pulled big transformers for the SEC and did heavy haulage work from the rail or wherever out to wherever the destination was. So these were like your Kenworth, 140 tonne rated prime mover. This is exactly what you're looking at. They got along quite quickly, as I say. They have a sprung front end, so they dampened the spring when they were doing that speed. It is owned by the Miles family out of New Zealand, who are here again. Ryan's up there. Miles, a couple of the Mileses are missing. I don't know where Rodney is. Where's Rodney? Oh, is he? All right, he's coming. All right. So, yep, they make their way across to, and they've been coming over here since the 80s to Lake Goldsmith, the late 80s. Not Ryan, he's not old enough. But, and they have restored about 3 or 4 engines now. Portables, that engine, a Ruston tractor that's coming most probably shortly. Evelyn Porter, tiny. This is one of the original engines that came here in 1962, ladies and gentlemen, and was a road roller. It was converted into a traction engine. We used to do tug of wars with the kids here. It was quite good fun, but apparently Morrison, Blackburn and Slater and Gordon have dampened all of that because we might need to put a band-aid on a child and we're not allowed to do that apparently. Ruston Proctor. Now, a little engine, and these were known as the horse's helper. And what these little engines would do in Australia in a lot of places is horse teams would get to a point where they couldn't pull any harder, and they'd hitch one of these little engines on to give them a hand to pull up over hills. In Australia they were known as the pony helper. Very little unique engine, they're very easy to transport. There's one that's being restored, another one of these, that belonged to the late Tom Mulcahy, and it's getting rebuilt and redone at the moment. The Z7 ploughing engine came out from England with a pair and the ploughing and a scoop and a whole range of stuff and a balance plough, and I was talking about it earlier. They're 30 tonne, and this did the Murrumbidgee irrigation scheme and then did all the Werribee sewage treatment plant, or all the channels out of Melbourne and everything were all done with one of these, with this engine. The other one is buried somewhere on the farm at Werribee, which was the Melbourne Metropolitan Border Works, now affectionately known as Melbourne Water. It belongs to the Science Works Museum, but unfortunately down there they don't have the area to run it. And it's up here at Lake Goldsmith where it gets run here and looked after, and it's great to see it. The big winding engine, the winch underneath, cable, and the two of them would set up and you'd pull backwards and forwards between the engines. Ruston Proctor here, and Hayden Miles on this one, Ryan's brother. Driving the Ruston, ticking away very nicely. Another traction engine, would have driven Thrasher, any of those, Rock Crusher, would have done a multitude of work in its day. Bowden coming along behind that. They're all English, these engines, owned by the Scobie, Steve Scobie. This one belonged to the late Alex Fraser from Yellowipura, whose grandson still runs the farm down there today, and this came from there and was restored. It was pretty sad when Steve Scobie got hold of this one, and it's good to see it back here. Ah, you boys get off that engine. Is all I heard as a kid from Alex. The Burrell, the little compound engine. Owned by the Smiths at Rockland. Lady Smith driving. You can't hit me from here. My adopted daughter. My daughter and adopted daughter are pretty inseparable. God, how did we all survive without a bloody phone, eh? I can't, well anyway, don't get me started. Have you got your phone out there? Come on, pull your phone out. TikToker, she'll be somewhere on the arena. Oh, she's over there. Of course she is. Not far away, right? Righto, the Cowley Road Roller. Have a guess where this was built, ladies and gentlemen. Ballarat. Yes, when we used to build stuff. The 404's a bit early into the Beaufort station. The Cowley Road Roller, 1932, and built in Ballarat. Miller Engineering are still there where this was built, and the Eureka Iron Works is still there. You can drive past and see the remnants of it in Ballarat. Aveling Roller, and we saw Tiny go past before. Well, that's exactly what Tiny looked like before being converted to a traction engine. One of the most synonymous engines here at the rally grounds is Victorious. And believe it or not, this engine has starred in many Australian productions. A big country, you name it. It has been in Marlborough ads. Now there's a swear word. It has been on Four Corners. What else was it in? Rush. The production of Rush was in the background there. Many a place. Federation Square at Cut, Sharp and Thrash in Melbourne. The late John Norris owned this engine, Victorious, and it has been part of Lake Goldsmith since about 1967. The Yorkshire Lady of the Lake, as it was known. Now this engine, this truck, steam truck, was housed here for many, many years by the late George Earl, and then it vanished. It was a bit like the TARDIS, it vanished. But it's resurfaced, and it's being restored. Now, Steve made a promise that he'd have it here at this bloody rally. And it's not finished, but he's honoured his promise because we were putting him under pressure. Because you said, November 2024, I'll have it finished. Well, it's not quite finished, but he has turned up with it, a Yorkshire, and when it's finished, it is a magnificent thing. It was here for years. Many people who have been coming here for a long time will have ridden on this wagon. It's more like a bus than a wagon. And Lady of the Lake, who was what it was known as, and it was here for many years. Clayton steam truck, Mr. Walterson here, howdy. And this engine's been here since Adam and Eve roamed the earth too, really, since the 60s, I think. Yes, another one of our old stalwarts, the Clayton. Sentinel steam wagon. You can see horse-drawn wagons, and then we went into steam trucks, and then we've got Isuzu and Hino now and Mitsubishi. We have Bedford and Austin's and Morris commercials. May I say that name? Sentinel steam wagon. And again, we're starting to get into the modern mechanised here. We've got a boiler in there, very warm in winter, bloody hot in summer. But our steering systems and everything are starting to get into kingpins and sprung front end in the Sentinel, leaf spring, still chain driven, but a lot of the characteristics here with drag links and steering box, we're starting to get into that more modern era of transportation. Mr. Johnny Franks coming along here with the Aveling Porter roller and road rolling. I don't need to explain that. So, the road roller there running up the road, and of course all the shires and municipalities brought these things in and made the roads, etc., and then they found their way back into private contractors' hands. Massey Ferguson. A lot of these tractors, they're Canadian built, articulated. A lot of them had the nickname Pups. Now I don't know why, but they were always referred to as the Fergie Pup. Of course, Fergie built a bigger version of these. This has the Perkins engine in it, 120 horsepower, and they were a pretty versatile tractor actually, broadacre, drawbar tractor, and they came out in about 3 different models. They went up to a 555 Cummins engine. Some of them were transplanted from 555s to 903, and then they brought the 903 Cummins engine out in these articulated Fergie tractors. And let me tell you, a lot of them done well over 30,000 hours because they're not revving hard. They're not like they're on the road. And these things are quite quick. You see the boys just having a bit of a stretching the legs there on the Sentinel. Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. There's our grand parade. But before you go, we're talking about Marshall, and only a POM could design this, so we're going to start the Marshall, the dozer here, with a shotgun cartridge. Now this is how you do it. So what we do is we put the cartridge in. You see him screwing it in there. Ready, set, give it a hit, and it didn't go. Bugger. So we'll take it out again. Prep another cartridge. Now of course, I'm quite sure the design engineers for this were sitting around the board table. They were on about their 9th bottle of port and smoking an opium pipe, because there is no other way that you would come up with such a system to start something in such a bloody cold climate.